I can't just go live on YouTube for some reason. Like there's like this different setup on every streaming service. That's why it would be just nice for everybody to go on one. Yeah, I'm tired, so I'm going to start bitching early. But yeah, YouTube, you have to start the streaming software and then go and click live in YouTube software instead of just letting you go live. I think Odyssey is the easiest one. So, Architect, welcome. Tonight, what I'm going to be discussing is Trump and his decision to go with Corey Lewandowski, who was his original campaign manager back in 2016, and everything that's kind of going around behind the scenes with it. It just seems odd, I guess, the decision-making process that's going on. There's certain people that are taking credit for it, like Nick Fuentes, and he's on this ongoing feud between him and Laura Loomer. Nick Fuentes believes that he started this thing called the Groyper War, and due to the fact of his Groyper War, it was him that created this shift in Donald Trump's decision to bring back Corey Lewandowski. And there was a Daily Mail article yesterday that kind of discussed what they call the meltdown in his campaign. And you know, you never know what any of these things, or if they're really telling the truth or not. No one actually really knows. But this Martha Williams from the Daily Mail was writing, it's hard not to think that there was something going on, something shaking up, that Donald Trump is lighting up his campaign staffers as he hunkers down at the Mar-a-Lago, 2 former aides have claimed. Now, the 2 former aides, you know, it's just kind of, I wonder who the 2 former aides are. Now, I do know that Anthony Scaramucci, which is one of his guys that was on his team for like 5 minutes, seems to have some sort of inside deal, inside kind of contact or whatever with the Trump campaign. I don't really believe Anthony Scaramucci, because I wouldn't trust that guy as far as I could throw him. But Trump is lighting up his campaign staffers as he hunkers down at Mar-a-Lago. The former president's reported meltdown comes from 2 staffers who worked in the White House under the former president and have since turned on him. As polls show the race, Kamala Harris is getting tighter by the day. And that's the other thing, too. Do you necessarily believe that Kamala Harris is actually tightening the race? Quote, I think that he feels this election slipping away from him. And that's where you're beginning to see him spiral, Sarah Matthews, a former Trump spokeswoman, told MSNBC. MSNBC. Former Trump spokeswoman. Republicans and top donors are worried about Trump's flailing strategy as he continues to launch vicious personal attacks on Harris. Well, I mean, why wouldn't he? She's a fucking moron. Of course he's going to do that. He'd be an idiot if he didn't do that. Obsess over her personality instead of core policy issues. such as the border, the economy, and crime. Well, we do know that she sucks at the border. She was supposedly the border czar, and then is claiming that she's not the border czar. The economy is terrible. She is vice president. This is what's amazing to me, is how dumb people are when it comes to voting. And I'm not just saying dumb for the sake of saying dumb. People have such short-term memories that your short-term memory and your lack of remembering the fact that she's a vice president and has control over a lot of these things, your lack of memory on that kind of stuff shouldn't have to make me suffer. So those of you who vote for Kamala Harris, who are Kamala Harris voters, and somehow, some way you think that it's a legitimate argument, it's an actual conversation to have of policy when it comes to Kamala Harris, when it comes to the border, she's the border czar. The border is wide open. The border is criminally wide open. The border is open on purpose. It's open on purpose to flood in illegal immigrants in order to change the demographics of the country and keep the current party in power. That's the point of it. The Daily Mail supposedly kind of like leans slightly right, but these articles are unbelievable. Unbelievably dumb. Anthony Scaramucci, who claims he maintains close ties with the ex-president's inner circle after an 11-day spell as his communications director. I mean, he was in his administration for 11 days. And by the way, was an anti-Trumper prior to being in Trump's administration. Caspio, welcome. You came over to Rumble. You came over from YouTube, right? If you did, thank you. More people who are on YouTube. Let me mention, if you can, I am being very, very badly shadow banned. Sounded like Trump saying that. But yeah, YouTube is doing a really, really good job. I tried to run an ad to promote my YouTube channel, and it said that I was, what was it? This is so stupid. I was using sensationalism and clickbait to drive traffic. And then I was using clickbait tactics. I was inducing fear. And basically was talking about politics. Yeah. Oh, and then, so it says all of these things about clickbait and everything, but the actual underlying reason was I need a certificate because I'm doing election advertising. Now, all I'm doing is giving opinion politics. That's all I'm doing. Oh, Kazan. What's up, man? Thanks for coming to Rumble. Awesome. Beautiful. They took your... Did they take your name? So you didn't have Kazan on Rumble? I mean, I can't imagine that they wouldn't have that on there. Yeah, I was so on YouTube. This is my point. It's like, why am I even on it? I really don't want to be, but then the architect, I don't know if you're still there or not. I don't tell me how you found me. I'm not sure if you're already a subscriber, but like I said, I had like 50,000 subscribers at one point, and all I do is lose subscribers now. Like they just come off. They just come down farther and farther, and it's like it's completely nonsensical. I have no idea why. I just simply lose followers. And I know, trust me, I'm one of those who understands that, okay, if your content's not that good, you're not going to gain any. But ever since the trucker convoy, that whole thing, I've just been losing followers. And then when I try to even give money to try and promote the channel on YouTube, and it's more experimental than anything because I hate the fact that I'm even giving them money. They tell me that I'm clickbaiting, and then I need some sort of special certificate because I'm doing election campaigning, which I'm not. I'm just talking about politics. But this is, I think Tim Pool said he had the same problem, even though I can't stand Tim Pool. But Tim Pool was basically the same thing, saying the same thing. However, Tim Pool yet makes millions of dollars a month on YouTube because he toes the line, and I'm sure he has some sort of an agreement with YouTube. Because if Tim Pool was really all about the truth in politics, the guy would be kicked off YouTube. He'd be completely kicked off by now. And I went on, like, originally on YouTube, and I'm hoping it's because people are leaving and going to different platforms. But consistently, I'll start off with a bunch of people, and then it drops off to almost nothing. And you just see this pattern of behavior with YouTube. And I'm not just saying it just simply to bitch, but I'm saying it because this is election interference right in front of your face. And there's no denying that it is election interference and that they're doing everything they can. It's about to play an ad, so I'm going to skip it. But they're doing everything they can to silence anyone talking about Donald Trump or anyone talking at all about the upcoming election because they're trying to change. And they do an amazing job of it. And this is where I get frustrated with Donald Trump, and I'm going off on a tangent. I get frustrated with him because he doesn't talk about this stuff, and he doesn't talk about saying, hey, look, when I get into office, I'm going to bring these people up on charges. We're going to have special prosecutors that are going to look into election interference from the people within YouTube, the people within Meta. We're going to prosecute these people for election interference. And then at the same time, they should also be investigated because they're publicly traded companies. If you're a publicly traded company like Alphabet, who owns YouTube and Google, and you are trying to manipulate an election, and you're purposefully lying to your creators and saying, hey, creator, we want you to create on our platform, but then we're going to shadow ban you. We're going to tell you that we're not really we're not really shadow banning you. And then you just, everything is a moving target when it comes to policy as well. Yeah, I can't believe somebody already has your username. I guess it's not a surprise. But yeah, Tim Pool, I watched him earlier on, and I can't stomach watching that guy anymore because I really know, in my heart of hearts that this guy is he has some sort of an agreement, and he toes the line. He, and also he's a supporter of Israel, so I know he's getting paid. It's just like the Daily Wire and all these other guys. It's the Israel shills. As long as you toe the line, you get paid. And as long as you don't take it too far, it's okay. And, as soon as I have a conversation with Alex Jones, when I put that thing up 8-minute video of my conversation with Alex Jones. Immediately, first thing happens, it gets taken down. They deleted the video. And then I appeal it. They tell me it's denied. Somehow it shows back up again, but then it's age restricted. And as soon as it's age restricted, of course, and when I saw the numbers and the views, it was going crazy. And then as soon as it's age restricted, because at that point it makes them look stupid that they're going to take that video down. They age restricted it. Killed its momentum at that point. But here's Anthony Scaramucci claiming he has close ties to people within the Trump campaign. He's saying that Trump isn't barnstorming across swing states because he's pissed. Donald Trump is lining up his campaign staffers as he hunkers down at Mar-a-Lago after his terrible decision to pick J.D. Vance as VP, insiders have revealed. I also don't know if this is true, but I can tell you, I've been saying, and I said this to Alex Jones, and I've said this on other spaces on Twitter, to Ryan Fournier and others who are high up in the realm of these, Ryan Fournier's Students for, I think it's Students for Trump. I can't remember the name, but kind of like a Charlie Kirk, TPUSA kind of thing. And I keep saying that J.D. Vance is a never Trumper. J.D. Vance called Trump Hitler. He bragged about not voting for Donald Trump in 2016. He called Donald Trump noxious. He is a protege of Peter Thiel, who comes from Silicon Valley. So, I mean, J.D. Vance comes from Silicon Valley through Peter Thiel, who's had government contracts and things through Palantir. But the biggest thing is you're a never Trumper. And as soon as I say that, of course, I get attacked online saying that you got to suck it up and save it for the Democrats. I mean, that is such a ridiculous thing. It is so naive to say something like that. Just goes to show how much you're really not paying attention. I mean, it's no different. It's no different. And I call J.D. Vance Trump or Pence's baby, Mike Pence's baby. If you have somebody like Mike Pence as your VP, are you really going to be able to trust that guy? So apparently Trump is pissed at the pick of J.D. Vance. I'm not so sure he is, because he never admits that he does anything wrong. And it's hard for me to believe that he would pick somebody like J.D. Vance and not know this stuff ahead of time before he makes the pick. So we went to North Carolina. Again, this is a Daily Mail from 8:15. I think it was, no, I printed it 8:15. From 8:14, August 14th. He knows Vance was terrible. Terrible pick, Scaramucci said on the podcast. The rest is politics. And again, Scaramucci he's a sleazebag. He's lighting people up in his campaign right now about picking Vance. And from what I've heard, it's his son, Don Jr., who picked J.D. Vance. And, Tucker Carlson, too, I think. Thomas Crook's body was cremated just 10 days. Yeah, Kaz, and I'm starting to believe at first, I think I said you were on, and I had said it's not an inside, well, I don't think it's an inside job. It's more of just some crazy lunatic doing things, but now I don't know. And think you might be right. It might be more of a inside kind of deal, because it just seems like, how do you make those kind of mistakes? I mean, there's just so blatantly obvious leaving that roof open, wide open like that. But it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it would actually be an inside job. But this is the world we live in. We live in a world where the working middle class is actually the enemy. And that New World Order, these communists, Marxists, Jewish supremacy is trying to destroy the white middle class. That's exactly what's going on. Trying to destroy all of us. Matthews, a Trump aide who quit immediately after the Capitol riot, pansy, has said that the U.S. can't survive a second term from her old boss and has refused to support him. I don't know why that's relevant. In August 2016, Trump had a similar meltdown, according to Scaramucci, that's when he brought in Kellyanne Conway. I don't know if people remember her, and then Steve Bannon. I like Steve Bannon, sort of. I do like Peter Navarro. I wonder if Peter Navarro is going to be back in again. Peter Navarro, I think, was an economic advisor. But he definitely needs to bring him back in. While Trump is laying low in Mar-a-Lago and trying to shift the blame for his downward spiral in the polls, his new opponent is striding around swing states with her freshly picked vice president in tow. And you could tell that this article is kind of biased. Because, first of all, I don't see really any sort of interviews or anything given by Kamala Harris. Okay, yeah, she's going around and she's doing some swing state stuff, but apparently there's going to be an interview that she is going to do, and Tim Walls-Balls is actually going to be asking the question. Tampon Tim. The New York Times has, however, reported that Trump has not lost any confidence in Vance and has been impressed with how he's performed on the campaign trail. So who do you believe? What do y'all think in the chat, whoever's in there? Do you think that Trump or J.D. Vance is a good pick or not a good pick? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was an inside job or not. Kazan, it's so crazy. He picked Vance. He knows Vance was a terrible, terrible pick, Anthony Scaramucci. I don't know why they have this obsession with Scaramucci. Not long before Harris took center stage, the former president was riding on a wave of success, and he was after the assassination attempt. He was riding high, but then for whatever reason, his campaign advisors decided to go to some black journalist conference, where he was just basically treated hostilely the entire time. They were treating him, just being hostile to him the entire conference. And the RNC was terrible. But yeah, he was doing really well after all of that. But at the same time, I think Biden, that campaign was falling apart. And then all of a sudden, and I knew this was going to happen. A lot of people didn't think it was going to happen. But as soon as they got rid of Biden and put in Kamala Harris, there was going to be this huge bump. And it didn't matter if they put literally a pile of dog shit on a pedestal with a microphone in front of it. It was going to have this huge change to the positive for the Democrats because Biden literally couldn't talk anymore. I mean, it was just, this guy just literally couldn't do anything. It got to that point. Think about that for a moment. Think about how bad it needed to get before people actually said, you know, I don't support this person anymore as a Democrat. This is what's scary to me. And this is what everybody has to really pay attention to, is that you needed someone to literally shut down and not be able to form a coherent sentence or even walk in order for Democrats to finally say, we don't support this guy anymore. So as soon as he dropped out and Kamala Harris went in, it didn't matter if she was, before all of this, she was hated and disliked and her poll numbers were bad. It didn't matter. There was going to be this huge bump for the Democrats because it was anything other than Joe Biden. And nobody took this into account. And she's going to get an even bigger bump during the DNC. Because that's just how it works. And meanwhile, Trump just keeps on doing the same old stupid thing that he was doing before. Just hiring people like Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles as his campaign managers. Both who think that the election was never stolen. Chris LaCivita agreed that Trump should have been removed through the 25th Amendment. So here you have a never Trumper in Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. Both of these people are lobbyists. Both of them worked on Bush campaign and then more recently the DeSantis campaign, who was running against Donald Trump. And I just like, what are you doing? So it was no great surprise to anyone that Biden pulled out of the race. Less surprising still that his own vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris, became the name on the ticket. Now, I don't know if it was less surprising. I think a lot of people kept on talking about Gavin Newsom or somebody else, but the logical, sequence was going to be Kamala Harris. But after building a campaign strategy around proving that Biden was unfit to serve a second term, Trump and his advisors were not prepared for what would happen when the 81-year-old actually pulled out of the race. Exactly. I saw it coming. I think a lot of people who watch me saw it coming. That, of course, there was going to be this bump because it's a woman. She calls herself black, even though she was Indian before that. And she's somebody other than Donald Trump. And the cackling didn't matter. None of this shit mattered. It was somebody, again, who was not Donald Trump. The campaign was thrown into turmoil when Harris soared in popularity, raising $200 million in donations in just her first week of campaigning and continuously rising in polls. This is what really scares me. So then they write in this article that he was reportedly talking to his confidants about firing his campaign managers, Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. So this goes on and on. I won't read it all, but yeah, so they talk the disastrous interview with a group of black journalists in Chicago. That didn't make any sense why he was there. He's not going to change anything when it comes to the black vote. That's going to remain the same. So there were a lot of people, I think, that were pushing and really upset with how things were going with the current campaign and the campaign managers. And here they mention, Trump described Harris as vicious and dumb. Continued to insist that her rally crowds don't exist at his own rallies on Truth Social. Then they were getting into the AI thing, and that a lot of this stuff was AI. I mean, some of it might be true. That some of that stuff was AI. I can definitely say for sure that like Harry Sisson and there's a guy Chris can't remember his name, but another one of these paid shills and Brooklyn Dad Defiant. These guys will have used AI. Joe Biden pictures. Chris Jackson, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, Harry Sisson do use AI. And so I wouldn't put it past them to use AI for their these campaigns and all these people making the campaign stops look bigger than they actually are. But here Nikki Haley called for Trump to make a serious shift in campaign strategy in an interview with Fox News. Who cares what she says? I want this campaign to win, but the campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. So anyway, everybody just kind of goes on and on about the fact that Donald Trump's campaign is falling apart. Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles seemingly are just not good enough, or incompetent, or a combination of both. And so there's this push from Nick Fuentes and his so-called Groyper followers to make these changes. And there's this huge push online during the Trump-Elon Musk interview that went horribly wrong initially. Probably could have been way better than it was. And, nothing of any substance was really talked about. I discussed this in an uploaded video that I uploaded yesterday, day before. And so with Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, they were doing this online campaign to fire Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. Well, that didn't happen. So what actually happened was Donald Trump decided to bring back Corey Lewandowski, who was the original campaign manager for Donald Trump. And so he's bringing this guy back, not firing the campaign managers. And there's a Twitter post by Nick Fuentes saying you're welcome or something to that effect, like somehow he did this, and there's this feud going on between him and Laura Loomer, who's also a huge Trump fan. I mean, these are I guess the best way to describe these two. Nick Fuentes is white nationalist, very smart kid, young kid, 25, 26 years old, very smart, has a lot of good things to say, but the problem I have with him was he decided that he was going to run Kanye West's presidential campaign, and now all of a sudden decides to come back and say that he's a huge Trump supporter. That I've been with Trump ever since the beginning. I've always been a Trump loyalist, but never seems to explain why he left and went with Milo Yiannopoulos, and him and Milo were campaign managers for the selfish self-promoter of Kanye West. And so after him, basically, Nick Fuentes taking credit for this Corey Lewandowski shakeup, and of course not addressing the fact that the other two, I mean, they were calling for firing La Savita and Susie Wiles, firing them, not taking Corey Lewandowski and making him the head of the campaign. So I'm going to read this Twitter post from Laura Loomer. Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are embarrassed that Donald Trump's team wants nothing to do with them. So now they are saying that they are the reason why Corey Lewandowski has been brought back, on when this is nothing more than a lie. The plan to bring Corey back on has been discussed by Team Trump internally since April. I know this for a fact, and it's great that he's back. Corey Lewandowski was involved in the planning of the RNC convention and has been talking to Trump for months about coming back on. It is really weird how Nick feels like he has to lie to people and falsely say that Corey Lewandowski and Nick Fuentes was a Nick Fuentes hire in an effort to inflame the fake news media, when Corey has been planning to come back to the campaign for months. Nick had nothing to do with Corey being hired. Has Nick been vocal online? Yes, he has. But to falsely claim that he has been responsible for Corey's coming back on is a bold-faced lie, no matter how many times the Groypers want to edit Corey's Wikipedia page. Imagine claiming you're the reason why Corey was brought back on when you began a push in August, and discussions to bring Corey on have been taking place since April. Not to mention today, President Trump praised Susie and La Savita, which is true. He praised them, but at the same time, is he praising them to, instead of just saying, maybe he's just doing it because he doesn't want to trash them. But he did praise them. He praised them on Truth Social. After Nick has been claiming online that Team Trump listens to him, Nick said that they would be fired because of him. Now he's saying Corey Lewandowski is back because of him. And she goes on to say that Lewandowski would publicly say otherwise. I know that for a fact. This is clearly a disinformation campaign. Nick should really stop pretending like he's calling the shots with Team Trump. You can criticize a campaign without blatantly lying and pretending that you're the reason why a decision was made. It's just a bold-faced lie, and I'm going to let this lie stand because Nick is doing this to benefit himself, not President Trump. I don't know what to make of this. I think, she has really good points that it's not really fair. I mean, when I initially look at the post that Nick Fuentes made and said, "You're welcome," I don't think it's really fair for him to take credit. I think it's wrong. I think it was wrong for him to take credit for that. Kaz, and to answer your question, I have not been putting stuff on Substack. I'm going to be putting more on there and as paid content. So now that I'm actually doing Thursdays on a regular basis live, what I'm going to start doing is more kind of like regular content, much shorter videos throughout the week. Probably not every day, but as much as I possibly can, but then keeping consistent on Thursday, and then try to get everybody to go for the premium content stuff on Substack. That'll be more of like the best way to support me is to become a member there. So I think it's $45 for the year and then $5 per month if you want to do it monthly. And of course you can cancel anytime you want, but I'm going to put stuff out there that I'm not going to put on regular social media. So probably talk a lot more, I guess, for the lack of a better word, more freely, and not worrying about, keeping it G rated or PG rated or even R rated, really. when it comes to what I really think about things. Because, of course, since I use the real name and everything else, it's, you have to be somewhat careful on what you say. But on Substack, yeah, I'm definitely going to be writing a lot more and doing a lot more on there. So thank you for asking that question. But yeah, that is definitely where people can support me. And if there's any topics in particular that anyone wants me to talk about that are supporting me, like you, Cass, and you've been a great supporter, and anybody else, I'll definitely put that on the Substack, because at least I know with Substack, it's going to be much less likely that I'm going to be taken down compared to any of these other platforms. So Laura Loomer and Nick Fuentes actually were kind of allies and friends, and just like all of these other conservative talking heads who get some sort of kind of popularity, then they end up starting to fight each other. And this is no different. And Laura Loomer had a problem with Nick Fuentes because he was criticizing Trump. But at the same time, Nick Fuentes was legitimately criticizing Trump because Trump has been deviating from what his 2016 campaign really was all about. And that was building a wall, ending migration, all these things that were really geared towards those who felt during previous administrations, like white middle class, that they were left behind and no one was paying attention to them. Everybody else seemed to be benefiting. And that's what's happening now, but 10 million times over. That white America, native white Americans are being left behind, are being abused, are being taken advantage of, overtaxed, made to be sick. I mean, I won't go through everything. That I could do one complete online video or live talking about all the horrible things that white America is being subjected to physically and mentally. But now it's like, okay, well, Trump now is running for president and he just doesn't seem to care about any of us anymore. And Nick Fuentes was legitimately making some points out about that and saying, you're just not paying attention to us. He's saying certain things. And then Laura Loomer, who is Jewish and supports Israel, got on Nick's case because he should just be an absolute Trump supporter under no circumstances, or under all circumstances, no matter what he says, he should remain as a Trump supporter. And she's wrong on that. So then, they have this kind of falling out and kind of going back and forth, and I think even Laura Loomer was coming around and starting to kind of criticize Trump for really not doing all the things that he should be. And so there was just kind of this back and forth kind of thing. And now more recently, this, where to me, Nick Fuentes is wrong. Nick Fuentes is taking credit for something he shouldn't take credit. Now, the timing suspect? Absolutely. Could there have been maybe Laura Loomer is claiming that this was talked about in April. Could it be that they sped this up more recently because of the pressure from the so-called Groypers and Nick Fuentes and all of them? Maybe it's possible. Everybody speculates about all this stuff, and it's impossible to know for sure unless you're actually in that room having that discussion of really knowing exactly what's going on. But yeah, I mean, the timing is definitely strange. And I think that he does have some influence, but at the same time, he is the type of guy who, of course, he is someone who he was working with Kanye West campaign with Milo Yiannopoulos. He was not supporting Trump. He was supporting someone who was running against Trump, and in fact had a meeting with Trump and said, Kanye West said to Donald Trump, "I'd like you to be my running mate," which is, to me, is an insult. I mean, how dare somebody like Kanye West say something like that to Donald Trump? So, bottom line, what I wanted to talk about tonight was yeah, there's these issues with how the campaign is being run. And I think there's a panic that's going on in the Trump campaign because they lost the momentum after the assassination attempt in the RNC. And I think that originally it was a huge mistake to pick those LaCivita and Wiles as his campaign managers. I think it was a huge mistake. I don't understand why that decision was made. And he didn't go with the original people on the 2016 campaign, maybe a different variation of it slightly. But the fact that you would pick people who didn't think that the election was stolen, and then you have somebody like LaCivita who believes Trump should have been removed from office from the 25th through the 25th Amendment. It's just nonsense. It just doesn't. Every single time I hear these things, I just shake my head and go, why even bother? Why even bother? I mean, I'm not a billionaire. Okay, I'm not Donald Trump, who's this famous person and all this shit, but so you can definitely make the argument, well, who are you to make these opinions? But I look at it and I go, okay, but this isn't really that hard to figure out. I mean, these are people who didn't like you. And it doesn't take a billionaire genius or theoretical genius to figure this stuff out. It's not that hard. And that's why, for me, Trump is, Trump's he's the guy. This is the one you have to vote for. But I'm just sitting here and I'm going, this is all we have. This sucks. It's funny how YouTube wants to keep showing ads. But you continue to surround yourself with people who don't like you. J.D. Vance is one of them. And then, J.D. Vance, he's come around. He's learned. Even Alex Jones said that. And Tucker Carlson is another one. I don't know if Tucker Carlson's going to end up in his campaign or not, but Tucker Carlson's another anti-Trumper. A lot of people don't know this, but I mentioned it to Alex Jones, and Alex Jones just poo-pooed it like it was no big deal. That Tucker Carlson, during discovery through the Dominion voting systems case, had texts from Tucker Carlson to other people within Fox News essentially saying the same shitty things that J.D. Vance was. That Trump is... He didn't say Hitler, but he had choice words saying that, basically, I can't wait till we never have to talk about him again. And that he's, quote, destructive. And I guess Trump has this thing, no matter how smart you are, I guess when you have some sort of personality trait that you so desperately want to be liked by people, that you allow these things to happen. So then it makes you wonder, okay, do you really care about the country or do you really care about your own ego? And then you see Nick Fuentes and Laura Loomer, it's about them now. It's never about really what matters. What really matters is the white middle class, the people that built this country. The people, again, that work hard, that pay, that they're the ones, the money that they make go towards all of the taxpayer dollars that go to Ukraine, that go to AIPAC, to Israel, that go to fund all of these wars. But none of it circles back to us. We don't benefit from anything. We just get called racist. We just get called homophobe. We just get called all these names. We're told we're the problem. Meanwhile, we're a minority on the globe. Meanwhile, we're told to keep on working and keep eating the trash food. Keep paying those higher medical bills. Keep paying those higher costs in food. Keep dealing with the inflation. And shut up when it comes to all these illegal immigrants coming in, invading our country. It's an invasion. And that's the other thing they don't talk about. Elon Musk and Donald Trump did not talk about this at all during they talked about it, but they didn't talk about why. They didn't talk about, yeah, we really need to close the border. Yeah, we really need to shut the border down. Okay, well, why is the illegal immigration thing happening in the first place? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who's behind it. Let's talk about the reason it's happening. Because this stuff could be turned, just like a switch, it could be turned off tomorrow. But the UN in North America and Europe and Australia, all these continents where it's white people, it's all being invaded. Why is that? They don't talk about that. They don't get into that at all. They just tell us how it needs to. It needs to stop. Yeah, good point. Tucker traded favors with Hunter Biden. I forget the exact things that happened. Put those, if you can, Kazan, in the chat, what happened. I know there was a relationship between the two. And I think Tucker Carlson was one of those, along with Donald Trump Jr., that said J.D. Vance was a good VP pick. And keep in mind, Tucker Carlson now all of a sudden is a Trump guy. He's talked shit about Donald Trump in text, so it's provable beyond any reasonable doubt that he was an anti-Trumper. Are you going to sit there and tell me that all of a sudden he changed his mind too? He woke up, or was it politically expedient for him? I mean, does it not help his brand? I mean, this guy was on CNN and MSNBC. Tucker Carlson's dad was in the CIA. I mean, how many of these people, like Mika Brzezinski and all these people that are like well-known news people, have ties to intelligence? I mean, yeah, I'll look into that. I think there's going to be less waves of protest in Europe because Keir Starmer and who's that Tiermer guy who wrote the letter? That's a whole different story too. Thierry Breton wrote this letter from the European Commission to Elon Musk. And Kazi, I think you saw me. I don't know, you may not have been on during the live stream when I was reading that before the live stream started. But the letter basically said to Elon Musk that, and in this, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the first sentence because this basically tells you everything you need to know. Dear Mr. Musk, I am writing to you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom and in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform of X of a live conversation between a U.S. presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to users in the EU. Note, what did this little asshole not do in that first sentence? You are going to have a live conversation between a U.S. presidential candidate and yourself. You can't say his name, you little scumbag. This little fruit right here. This guy. this little Frenchie, this little communist wrote that letter. And what he said in the letter was, you better watch what you say, and you better not allow Donald Trump to say anything that would be misinformation or disinformation, because they love using those words, because they know nothing else. And to keep his mouth shut and not say anything, because they don't want you talking about the illegal immigrants that are coming in to North America and Europe, and in this case, Europe. And so this was coming off of the Keir Starmer thing, where Keir Starmer is saying, hey, we're going to put you in jail for the rest of your life if we catch you lighting something on fire. And so, yeah, going back to what you were saying, Kaz, and I think that there probably won't be your riots, only because the threat of, I think it's 10 years or so, whatever it was that Keir Starmer. And by the way, let me show you Keir Starmer punching a punching bag.
Just try and whack it. Yes, this is good. And again. That's it. And again. Try and breathe. Relax. That's it. Move back up.
That's your Labour Party. That's
Keir.
Keir Starmer punching a punching bag. That's that. And can you imagine this guy punching a punching bag? This is what, if you want to name names of the people, like when you're saying, oh, it's these people, these are the people that are those people, or they, or them, or whatever it is you want to say. These are those people. This is what is in control of allowing the invasion of Europe and North America and Australia. These guys who couldn't fight themselves out of a wet paper bag. We are allowing these people, and I'm not even calling them men, because they're not. These people, Thierry Breton and Keir Starmer, just two of them. Somebody said they saw more power in a fart than that guy's punch. And here's AIPAC. AIPAC bragging about who's part of, and Israel who's part of, and the Jewish NGOs that are part of destroying America with illegal immigration. Look how they brag about the amount of money in last night's and the night before's elections, and how much money that they're spending on both left and right wing. Look at Rosa DeLauro. I mean, she's got purple hair, for shit's sake. This is what, I mean, there was another stabbing that got, swept under the rug in the UK. I'm not sure what happened to that. So yeah, so that's what's happening. It's we'll have to see how this plays out with Trump's decision on putting Corey Lewandowski in the driver's seat. But he is not firing the two, Lasavita and Miles. He's not firing them, as far as I know. And I'm sure tonight we'll hear more, and there's going to be firing back and forth between Laura Loomer and Nick Fuentes about, who's liked better in the Trump campaign. Who wants to take credit for it and make more money on super chats and everything else, because that's what they do. That's what it's all about to them. Not about the people who are really suffering in the country right now. It's more about their own egos. So we'll see how it plays out. I will see you. I'm probably going to do kind of like a random live on the weekend, but I will, like I said before, those who are watching, I didn't even see who's had a few on, what do you think, Kazan? Do you think Thursday is a good day? Are you on Odyssey and Rumble, or just on Rumble right now and came off of Odyssey? You definitely are helpful in me figuring out who's where. Okay, so you're on Odyssey. Okay, that explains. But what do you think? What do you think? Thursday is a good night? I was thinking Thursday would be a good night because it's a popular night. But then, and I'm going to be consistent with that. And then on weekends, here and there, try something maybe on a Saturday night or Sunday night or something like that. But of course, like us all, we have to work to make a living, because we can't do this like Laura Loomer does and Nick Fuentes and make all that money. It just also makes you wonder, like, how is that even possible? I mean, I guess it is possible, because when YouTube, and I wasn't silenced on YouTube, the money was actually pretty good for like 1 month. But if these guys are making it on a consistent basis, I can understand other. But at the same time, these are people who are doing this, and it's strictly about popularity and ego and money and all that stuff. More X trolling. Actually, what's been helpful is I have been going into the X spaces. That's been really helpful. But it's finding the right ones, and I may actually do some of my own. I don't know if you've gotten in X or not, Kazan, but they have this thing called Spaces, which is kind of like a thing where a bunch of people can get in and kind of have an open discussion. It's not video based, which is good because you don't have to show who you are if you don't want to. And you can either just listen, or if you can request as a speaker, and then whoever's hosting it can make you a speaker and then call you up and you can talk. Okay, so you see me on some of the X spaces. So yeah, I think that's been pretty good. So doing more of those, but then again, it's like not the easiest thing to do. It's time, it takes time, and of course, like I was saying before, we all have to work for a living, so it's more difficult. Okay. Thanks, Kazan, again for being here. Hopefully see you over the weekend. And thanks to the rest of you that have come out and watched for the first Thursday night show. Of course, I'll do it again on Thursday night at 9 or 9:30, hopefully at 9. And appreciate you all being here. Thanks again, Kazan, and we'll see you all over the weekend and next Thursday. Have a good night.